Hello, welcome to this short introduction to PhD study in the Department of Geography at the University of Cambridge. My name's Charlotte Lemansky and I'm the Director of Postgraduate Studies here in Geography at the University of Cambridge. I'm really delighted that you've chosen to watch this short video because it means that you're interested in coming to join us as a PhD student. And that's really wonderful and exciting. We have so many fantastic opportunities in the department for PhD study, and it's a really exciting career path to take and a research stage in terms of starting to become part of producing knowledge rather than just consuming knowledge and contributing to the vibrant research community that we have in the department, in the university and across the global academic arena. In this short introduction, I'm going to speak a little bit about what is a PhD, why it is that you might be thinking about studying for a PhD, what it is that we can offer in geography at Cambridge in terms of studying for a PhD, and also I'm going to talk a little bit about the admissions process. How do you go about applying for a PhD? What's the right way to go about it? Now, firstly, I suppose the first question is, what is a PhD? The important thing about a PhD is it is a path towards producing an original and significant piece of research that is focused on a very narrow field or subject. It is independent research. You work with a supervisor, but it is your independent, original research project that you have to produce. It's expected to last 3 years full-time, and during those 3 years, you're expected to participate fully in department and university-wide skills and training programs. And the PhD is examined by your submission of your thesis, and thesis is typically approximately 80,000 words, and it's typically of publication standard in order to qualify for a PhD. Here in the Department of Geography at Cambridge, we have two routes for the PhD. There's the PhD in Geography and the PhD in Polar Studies, which is based in the Scott Polar Research Institute, which is part of the Department of Geography. Now, in the rest of this short clip, I'm going to talk generically about a PhD in geography, but what I'm talking about is also applicable to anyone that's thinking about studying for a PhD in polar studies specifically. What are some of the opportunities that can be provided if you choose to study for your PhD in the Department of Geography at Cambridge? Firstly, all postgraduate PhD students have full access to the university training and resources. And the diversity of resources and training programs available at the university is outstanding. And specifically, I target postgraduate students and PhD students towards the Researcher Development Programme, which is a specific programme that we have here at Cambridge to support PhD students and research-based postgraduate students towards thinking about what specific skills and training do they need to identify and achieve within their time studying with us as a postgraduate student. How can we help them to plan that time? What programs do we have on offer that they can access? And how do we help them to record what they've done and to think about the transferable skills that arise from the training? Because although the PhD is examined by an 80,000 word thesis, there's much, much more to the 3 years of study than simply writing 80,000 words. As a PhD student, we expect you to be fully integrated into our dynamic research community within the department and within the university, and you have full access to all the seminars that take place across all the different departments and research centres and institutes within the university. And I said this in my general introduction video, but the vast array of seminars is amazing, truly exceptional, high quality standard and real diversity of seminar programs that you can get involved in. There's also a very specific training program called the Social Science Research Methods Program, and we actively encourage all PhD students to engage in that. There are training programs on statistics, GIS, interviewing, ethnography, ethics of research, all a really wide diversity of training programs that will be relevant to anyone working in the social sciences. We also provide access to the Language Centre, and the university and your college have a bursary to support those that need to undertake some form of language training for their PhD. And then the two things I've left at the bottom are perhaps the things that I think are the two most exciting things. We have a really vibrant and dynamic are two of the things that I think are perhaps the most exciting. We have a really vibrant and dynamic research community of postgraduate students within the Department of Geography, and we really encourage the cohort to connect with one another, to make peer-to-peer connections, to work together, to collaborate together, to share ideas, not just for the cohort within your year group, but also for the cohort who are perhaps the year above you and the year above that, who can give you an insight into the different ways that the department functions and the university. Often that happens quite fluidly through your supervisor. If you're a first year student and your supervisor also has second and third year students, you get to meet them. But also through the training programs that we run for first and third year PhD students, it's a great opportunity to meet others in your year group who perhaps are studying completely different topics to you, because geography is so diverse, but nonetheless provide that really important peer support, because doing a PhD can be quite isolated. It's very independent study, so it's really important that you get that strong peer support network, and that's something we actively promote within geography. The other way that we actively promote that is through involvement in our department research groups. Now, here in the Department of Geography, we have 6 core thematic research groups: vital geographies, infrastructural geographies, geographies of knowledge, biogeography and biogeomorphology, climate and environmental dynamics, glaciology and glacial geology. Now, you'll be actively encouraged to join one of these groups as a PhD student within the department, and not just to join as a passive observer, but to get involved in running workshops, perhaps co-convening one of the groups in your second or third year as a PhD student, meeting with other researchers, not just students, but professors, postdoctoral researchers, lecturers within the department, finding out what's going on more broadly in the research field in which your PhD might be situated. And of course, you're absolutely welcome to join more than one thematic research group. We don't restrict PhD students to only joining one, but we do believe this is a really important way in which PhD students are integrated into the research in the department and are started to be recognised and encouraged to promote their identity as active researchers, rather than as, perhaps as an undergraduate student where you're consuming knowledge. As a PhD student, you're co-creating new knowledge, and it's really important that you participate in the research life of the department. What's the process like for doing a PhD in the Department of Geography? Now, I've said that it's research-led, that it's independent research, that it can be quite isolated, that often you're working on your own. Does that mean that you just start the PhD and 3 years later you submit your thesis? No, definitely not. That would not be an appropriate way to support you in your PhD process. And there's a number of key things that we do within geography to support our PhD students. The first, and probably your most important contact in the department, will be your supervisor. And you will have regular meetings with your supervisor in your first year of a PhD. Often these are weekly or fortnightly, and in the second and third year, often the timing of these changes to reflect whether you're doing field work or whether you're writing chapters. But nonetheless, your supervisor is your first port of call in the department, and it's really important that that relationship is strong, and that you feel able to be honest with your supervisor and to work together on what is your research program, not your supervisor's research program. Now, in addition to your supervisor, in the first term of your PhD, you'll be set up with an advisory committee. An advisory committee is 2 other academics, at least one of which must be from the Department of Geography, the other can be from elsewhere in the university. And your advisory committee oversees your academic progress in the first year, so that you're receiving input from someone beyond your supervisor. One of the members of your advisory committee is then appointed as your advisor, and this is someone that you can go to at any point during your PhD with any concerns you might have, any questions you might have, and anything that you might want to speak to them outside the relationship that you have with your supervisor. We have a full training program in the first and the third year of the PhD. In the first year, this is very much focused on encouraging you to develop your skills, to think about what skills that you need and to access them, to think about how you're going to plan your PhD, and to think about what resources you need, what data you need, how you're going to go about doing that. So it's a very intense training program in the first year. In the third year, the training program is much more about helping you to reflect on analysing your data, writing up your PhD, helping you to plan your time effectively so that it's realistic for you to submit your thesis in that third year. And we also run some sessions helping you to think a little bit about what will life be like after the PhD. What are some of the different career options that could be available to you, whether you want to stay in academia or not. Now, going back to the first year, one of the things that's really important in the first year is helping you work towards developing your first year proposal. And it's your first year proposal, which you submit towards the end of your first year, that is crucial in enabling you to be registered as a PhD student. The first thing we ask is that in your second term as a PhD student, you give a presentation in the first year forum. All first year PhD students give a short presentation of their research, and the department comes to hear and to listen, and you receive feedback on your PhD ideas from a broad diversity of people from within the department. Following that first year forum, you have a review meeting with your advisory committee where they discuss with you your preliminary plans for the PhD and help you think quite specifically about what it is you're going to do in the PhD, and just to make sure that your proposal is really clear and specific. Towards the end of your first year, in the third term of your first year, you submit your first year proposal, which is 10,000 words. And after that, you have another progress review meeting with your advisory committee, where they read through that proposal and they have an oral discussion with you about the ideas for your PhD, about the plans, and if assuming that you pass that progress review, it's after that and only after that that you're registered for the PhD and approved to undertake fieldwork, data collection, whatever form your PhD might take. It's generally the case that for most students in the second year of their PhD within geography, they are on fieldwork, they are collecting data, whether that data might be interviews with people, or collecting samples, or analysing secondary data, or doing computer modelling. We have a very broad diversity of what might be considered data within geography. And all students are required to submit financial planning, ethics and risk assessment for whatever form their data collection might take. And then in the third year, again, it's very common for students to be back in Cambridge, analysing their data, writing their data. And again, in the third year, we have the third year forum where every single third year PhD student presents their PhD progress to people across the department and to their peers and receives feedback. And this is a really fun and exciting day, particularly if you've been there at the first year presentations and you get to see 2 years later how the ideas have developed, what actually happened from what students said in the first year they were going to do to what actually happened. And this is also where the peer support comes in, because the PhD students from across your cohort attend those forums and give you feedback on your PhD. How do you apply for a PhD? Now, I've put there that the funding deadline is the 7th of January. That's for a whole host of specific funding that we have within Cambridge. You're required to have applied for the PhD by the 7th of January in order to be eligible for Cambridge-specific funding. Of course, there are other funding that you may have identified independently that you're welcome to apply to, and you can apply for a PhD after the 7th of January, but you are no longer eligible for any of the Cambridge funding. So it's really worth getting that application in by the 7th of January. You may also find that if you wait until after that date, a potential supervisor is already full with other applicants that did make the deadline. So the sooner you can work on your application, the better. Now, many students find the process of applying for a PhD a little bit confusing, because it isn't the same as when you apply for an undergraduate or a taught master's, where you see this is the programme and you simply apply. Because the PhD is so much about working with a supervisor, often the way that you apply for a PhD is first not to apply to the university, but to make contact with a potential supervisor. And quite recently, 2 of our PhD students in the department have written an entire blog on our pages about the research admissions process, about their experiences of applying for the PhD in geography, about what you need to do and don't do, and it's a really, really useful resource. So I'd really encourage you to go onto our webpage and read that. One of the things that's really important there is that, as I said, you need to make contact with a potential supervisor before you apply to the department, before you apply for a PhD at Cambridge. In that initial contact with the supervisor, it's important to have identified why you think they are the right person to supervise your PhD. Why is it that the ideas that you have for what it is you want to study would be best conducted under their direction, under their input. So you need to pick up on something they've written, something they're working on, have a look at their webpage, and identify someone that would be the right supervisor for you. Many of us receive a significantly high number of email inquiries from potential students, and what really stands out is when a potential student has read our work, has thought about why we would be the right supervisor, and makes it very clear in that email why you specifically, in my case, why I, Dr. Lemansky, would be the correct person to supervise that applicant. You'll need to develop your own research proposal, and you'll need to have the interest of a supervisor before you then go ahead and submit your application to study for a PhD at Cambridge, because then on that application you identify who it is that you're hoping to work with as a supervisor, and that you've already had contact with that person. That concludes the little presentation that I wanted to give on PhD study in the Department of Geography. I hope it's given you a bit of a taster of what it would be like to be a PhD student here, as well as a bit of a taster about the admissions process. Really encourage you to go onto our website, have a look at all the different resources that we have. There are other videos and clips on our web pages. You can read about the different thematic research groups. You can read about different potential supervisors. You can also read about our current PhD students. Find out a little bit about what are they studying, what experiences do they have. And that can also be a really interesting way of finding out a bit more about what it might be like to do a PhD in the Department of Geography at Cambridge. There's also going to be a live Q&A that's advertised already for you to ask your questions with me, and there'll be 2 current PhD students coming to that live Q&A as well. So I'd encourage you, think about what those questions are, get ready, come to that live Q&A and ask your questions, and I hope that we'll be able to answer them. So to conclude, thank you very much for listening. It's really exciting that you're interested in doing a PhD with us here in geography, and I hope that I get to meet some of you over the coming weeks and months. Thank you.